She was just looking for a simple job to support her family. But fate put a billionaire CEO in his path. Between spreadsheets and glances, something appeared that no one expected. Now her heart is on the line, and so is his. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching as we continue. Her high heels echoed across the marble floor of the imposing office building in the financial heart of the capital. Isabel Luna nervously adjusted the only blazer she owned, bought on sale 3 months ago when she still believed her savings would last longer. Her fingers tightened on the folder containing her resume as she studied her discreet reflection in the elevator mirror. Tightly tied brown hair, soft makeup, the most confident posture she could maintain after 15 failed interviews. The digital sign marked the 40th floor. The doors opened onto a sophisticated space, dominated by shades of grey and smoked glass. The receptionist at Dahan Investments greeted her with an analytical look she was already familiar with, the one that said, "Another candidate who won't last." "Miss Luna, Mr. Dahan will see you in 5 minutes," the receptionist said, indicating a waiting area with leather armchairs. Isabel took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This wasn't just another interview. It was her last chance before she had to admit defeat and return to her hometown. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes we need to take a step back to gain momentum. But she didn't want to back down. Not after watching her family's small construction company, built with so much hard work, crumble before her eyes. The cell phone vibrated in her purse. It was a message from Mrs. Cecilia, the owner of the boarding house where she lived. "Honey, don't forget that the rent is due the day after tomorrow." Isabel closed her eyes for a moment. Her savings would barely last for another 2 weeks in the city. "Mr. Dahan is waiting for you," the receptionist announced, interrupting her thoughts. Upon entering the president's office, Isabel felt the weight of the environment. The panoramic view of the capital served as a backdrop to an imposing dark wood table, where Breno Dahan, the billionaire CEO, was analyzing some documents. Without looking up, he gestured for her to sit down. "Your resume says you ran a construction company." His deep voice filled the room. "Why did you leave?" "The company went bankrupt," Isabel answered truthfully, holding his gaze when he finally looked up. "It was my family's business. I learned about resilience and adaptation the hard way." Breno Dahan studied her with veiled interest. Tall, in his late 40s, he exuded an aura of natural authority. His green eyes had a disturbing intensity. 5 assistants in 1 year, he commented, leaning back. "Do you know why?" "I imagine you're a demanding man," Isabel replied, maintaining her composure. "But I also imagine you're fair. Otherwise, your company wouldn't be a reference in the market." A near smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "What makes you think it will be any different?" "Because I'm not here looking for a stepping stone to move up in the company or impress anyone. I'm here because I need to prove to myself that I can rebuild my life. And when I have a goal, Mr. Dahan, I'm unwavering." The silence that followed was thick. Breno watched her as if trying to decipher a particularly complex enigma. Finally, he picked up a folder on the table. "Immediate start. Full schedule. International commitments. Absolute discretion," he listed, holding out the document. Still, interested, Isabel picked up the folder, feeling the weight of the opportunity in her hands. "When do I start?" "Now," he replied, turning his attention back to the laptop. "Your first task is to rearrange next week's schedule. You have 30 minutes. Without hesitation, Isabel opened her folder and began working. What she didn't know as she focused on overlapping commitments and scheduling conflicts was that Breno was watching her through the reflection in the window, a glint of curiosity in his normally cold gaze. The game had begun. And for Isabel, Luna losing was not an option. The weeks turned into a whirlwind of appointments, meetings, and endless demands. Isabel quickly understood why the other assistants had not resisted. Breno Dahan was more than demanding, he was relentless. Every detail had to be perfect. Every minute of his schedule had to be used with maximum efficiency. But where others saw impossibility, Isabel saw a challenge. Her nights at the small boarding house were spent studying the financial market, memorizing the names of shareholders, and creating increasingly efficient spreadsheets. Donna Cecilia, worried, would often leave a cup of tea at her door, muttering something about working too much. One particularly busy morning, Isabel arrived at the office 2 hours earlier than usual. There was an important meeting with international investors, and she wanted to make sure everything went flawlessly. That's when she noticed something strange about the numbers in the presentation that Breno would use. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Marina, one of the oldest analysts, when she saw Isabel entering the CEO's office without being called. Breno was on the phone, his expression grim, indicating a tense conversation. When he saw Isabel, he made an impatient gesture of dismissal. She stood firm, holding the folder with the revised documents. "I'll call you back," he ended the call abruptly. "Miss Luna, I hope this is important." "The numbers in the presentation are incorrect," she said, getting straight to the point. "The growth projection is overstated by 12%. If you present that to investors, you will undermine your credibility." The silence that followed was glacial. Breno stood up slowly, his imposing height making the room even more intimidating. "Are you telling me the analysis team made a mistake?" "I'm telling you there was an update on the macroeconomic outlook last night." Isabel kept her voice steady, though her heart was pounding. "I spent the night redoing the calculations. Here is the revised version with the appropriate justifications." Breno picked up the folder, his green eyes quickly scanning the numbers. His expression remained unreadable, but Isabel noticed a slight tension in his jaw. "Why do you care so much?" he asked suddenly, looking up. The question took her by surprise. "Because it's my job," she answered simply, "and because I know what it's like to see something you built crumble because of miscalculated numbers." Something changed in his eyes, a brief flicker of recognition, perhaps understanding. Without saying anything, Breno picked up the phone and called an emergency meeting with the analysis team. That afternoon, during the investor presentation, Isabel watched from the doorway as the correct numbers were projected onto the screen. That was when she noticed Breno watching her through the reflection in the glass. There was something different in his gaze, a quiet respect that hadn't been there before. On the way out, as the investors said their excited goodbyes, Breno stopped beside her. "Have dinner with me tonight," he said in a low voice. It wasn't a request, but it didn't sound like an order either. Isabel felt her heart skip a beat. "I don't think it's appropriate, Mr. Dahan." "Breno," he corrected, an almost smile on his lips. "And it's not a personal invitation. We need to discuss your promotion." Before she could process the information, he had already walked away to greet the last investors. Isabel stood still, feeling that something fundamental had changed in that moment. What she didn't know was that that dinner would be just the beginning of a much bigger transformation in her life, one that no spreadsheet or projection could have predicted. The restaurant Breno had chosen was on the top floor of one of the capital's most exclusive buildings. Isabel nervously adjusted the basic black dress she kept in storage for emergencies as the maitre d' led her to a reserved table with a view of the illuminated city. Breno was already waiting for her, his crisp Italian suit replaced by a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a surprisingly less formal look on the man she knew. He stood up when he saw her, his green eyes roaming her figure with an interest that made her heart race. "You're late," he commented, a half smile softening the criticism. "5 minutes," Isabel replied, sitting down. "I had to take care of something with the legal department before I left." "The Asian contracts thing?" he asked, arching an eyebrow. "Resolved. The documents will be on your desk tomorrow morning for signature." Breno studied her for a moment before gesturing to the sommelier. "You never stop working, do you?" "Look." "Who's talking?" she countered, surprising herself with her boldness. His smile widened. "Touché." He paused as the wine was poured. "But I didn't bring you here to talk about work. Or rather, not just work." Isabel felt a familiar tension settle in her shoulders. "The promotion you mentioned, I want you as Special Projects Coordinator," he declared, his eyes fixed on her. "New position created specifically for you." "Why?" she asked directly. "Because you see beyond the numbers, because you're not afraid to confront me when I'm wrong, and because," he paused, taking a sip of wine, "you intrigue me." The air between them was charged with a different tension. Isabel took a sip of water, trying to gather her thoughts. "People will talk." "They're already talking," he shrugged. "Marina alerted me to the rumors in the office. Apparently we've been an item for weeks." Isabel felt her face heat up. "And that doesn't worry you?" "I'm more worried about losing a talent because of hallway gossip." Breno leaned in slightly. "Unless the rumors are what's really bothering you." "What bothers me is that it seems like I don't deserve the position," she replied honestly. Breno was silent for a moment, his intense gaze studying every detail of her face. "Do you know why I fired 5 assistants in 1 year?" he asked suddenly. Isabel shook her head. "Because they all tried to please me. You're the first one who tries to do the job right," he smiled. "And that, Isabel, is much more attractive than any attempt at seduction." Dinner continued with surprisingly easy conversation about books, music, and travel. Isabel discovered a different Breno, a man who played the piano in his spare time and collected first editions of literary classics. It was only when dessert arrived that he mentioned something that took her by surprise. "My daughter wants to meet you." Isabel nearly choked on her coffee. "Your daughter?" "Livia, 16, he explained, a shadow of concern crossing his face. "She lives with her mother in London, but she's coming to stay with me for a while. Apparently she's heard the same rumors that are circulating in the office." "And she's not happy about it," Isabel guessed. "She's never happy with anything I do," Breno sighed. "The divorce was complicated. Livia was 10 years old and never really forgave me." There was a vulnerability in his voice that Isabel had never heard before. Without thinking, she reached across the table, lightly touching his hand. "Where's she arriving?" "Next week," he replied, his fingers intertwining with hers in a natural movement. "And yes, that is an invitation to have dinner with us." The touch between their hands generated an electric current that ran through Isabel's entire body. It was the first time they had touched each other, and the intimacy of the moment startled her. Gently, she removed her hand. "Breno," she began, trying to keep her voice steady, "we need to set clear boundaries. If I'm going to accept this promotion, I need to make sure it's because of my work." He studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Clear boundaries," he agreed. "For now." The "for now" hung in the air between them, full of unspoken promises. When they left the restaurant, the city shone below like a sea of stars. In the elevator, Breno approached slightly. "Thanks for dinner," she said, trying to break the tension. "Isabel," his voice was hoarse, "you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already proven everything to me." Before she could respond, the elevator doors opened. On the sidewalk, as she waited for her car, Breno surprised her with one last comment. "By the way, the black dress looks perfect on you." The news of Isabel's promotion spread through the company like wildfire. Her belongings had barely been moved to the new office when the first suspicious glances began. Marina, the analyst who had warned her earlier, now barely concealed her displeasure. "Meeting in 5 minutes," announced Carlo, the CFO, as he poked his head into his office. "Breno wants to present the new project." Isabel quickly organized her notes. As Special Projects Coordinator, her first assignment would be to lead an international expansion initiative, something she'd been secretly studying since taking over as assistant. The conference room was packed when she arrived. Breno was already there, impeccable in his charcoal suit, focused on his presentation. His eyes met hers briefly, a flicker of recognition passing between them. "Before we begin," he said, his voice commanding immediate attention, "I would like to officially introduce our new Special Projects Coordinator, Isabel Luna. She will be leading the expansion into the Asian market." A murmur ran through the room. Rami Saviani, one of the senior advisors, cleared his throat audibly. Isn't this a bit too ambitious a project for someone so inexperienced? Isabel? Breno turned to her, ignoring the comment. Please present your preliminary analysis. With her heart racing but her voice steady, Isabel began her presentation. Over the past few weeks, she had been meticulously mapping out opportunities in the Asian market, identifying potential partners and calculating risks. As she presented her data, she could see her initial skepticism turning into genuine interest. Impressive, one of the directors commented at the end. How long did it take to prepare this? Since my first day as an assistant, Isabel replied honestly, I always believed that we were wasting opportunities in that market. And that's why she's the right person to lead the project, Breno concluded, a touch of pride in his voice that didn't go unnoticed. After the meeting, as she organized her notes, Isabel realized she was not alone in the room. Rami Saviani had remained behind, his cold eyes fixed on her. You know, Miss Luna, he began, his voice mellifluous, it's amazing how some people can rise so quickly in the world. Isabel kept her gaze steady. Through hard work and competence, yes. Sure, he smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Just be careful. Falls from very high places can be painful. Before she could respond, Breno reappeared at the door. His expression changed visibly when he saw Saviani. Is there a problem? Just congratulating our new coordinator, Saviani replied softly, heading for the exit. Good luck with the project, Miss Luna. When they were alone, Breno closed the... What did he say? Nothing I can't handle, Isabel replied, organizing her files. But I imagine he's not my only admirer. Breno stepped closer, his expression tense. Saviani is dangerous. He vehemently opposed your promotion to the council. Why? Because he knows me well enough to know you're different, Breno replied, his voice lowering. And that scares him. The air between them became charged. Isabel could feel the heat emanating from his body so close to hers. Breno, I know. He backed away slightly. Clear boundaries, but that doesn't stop me from worrying. Knock on the door interrupted them. It was his new assistant. Miss Luna, your daughter has arrived, Mr. Dahan. She's waiting in the reception area. Isabel saw the tension take over Breno's shoulders. Did Livia arrive first? Apparently he decided to surprise me. He ran his hand through his hair, a rare gesture of nervousness. Dinner. It's still standing, Isabel finished, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I'll meet your daughter, Breno, and we'll deal with this too. Livia Dahan was the perfect combination of her parents' privileged genes. Tall and elegant like Breno, she had a classic beauty that made her seem older than her 16 years. Her green eyes, identical to her father's, analyzed Isabel with a mixture of curiosity and distrust when they met at the reception. So you're her, were his first words, thick with a British accent. Isabel Luna, she introduced herself, extending her hand. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Livia. The teenager ignored the outstretched hand, turning to her father. I thought we could have dinner alone tonight, Dad. We haven't seen each other in 6 months. Breno looked uncomfortable, torn between his daughter and Isabel. Livia, we've already talked about this on the phone. Dinner. Okay, Isabel interjected softly. We can reschedule. You need this time together. No, Breno was firm. We arranged this dinner and it will happen. Livia needs to understand that some things have changed. The teenager laughed, humorlessly. Have they changed? Like they changed when you decided to divorce Mom? Or when you sent us to London because your work was more important? Livia. Breno's voice took on a warning tone. Isabel saw the pain in both of their eyes and made a decision. How about a compromise? We can all have dinner together, but somewhere more casual. I know an amazing pizza place. No formalities, no pressure. Father and daughter looked at her in surprise. It was Livia who spoke first. Pizza. Dad never eats pizza. Then it's time to start, Isabel smiled. Unless you're afraid of breaking your impeccable diet, Breno. An amused glint appeared in his eyes. Challenge accepted, Miss Luna. The pizzeria was exactly as Isabel remembered, welcoming, with Italian music playing in the background and an irresistible smell of fresh pasta. The owner, Mr. Giuseppe, welcomed her with his usual warmth. "Isabel, long time no see," he exclaimed in his heavily accented Portuguese, "and I brought company." They were seated at a more private table in the back. Breno looked oddly out of place in his expensive suit, but his eyes sparkled with amusement as he took in the surroundings. "How did you find out about this place?" Livia asked, genuinely curious. "I worked here for a few months when I first arrived in the capital," Isabel answered honestly. "Mr. Giuseppe helped me a lot when I needed it most." "You were a waitress?" The teenager looked fascinated. "Among other things, I did what was necessary to survive after our construction company went bankrupt." Breno watched her intensely, as if he were discovering a new side of her. Livia, in turn, leaned forward. "What was your construction company like?" For the next hour, Isabel shared stories about the family business, how her father had taught her to read blueprints at a young age, and their dreams of expanding the business. Livia listened intently, asking occasional questions. "And now you work with Dad," she said finally, her tone softer. "Isn't that strange? After losing everything—" "Livia," Breno intervened, but Isabel stopped him with a gesture. "It's a valid question," she smiled at the teenager. "And yes, sometimes it's weird, but I've learned that life rarely goes the way we plan. It's how we deal with the surprises that matter." A contemplative silence fell over the table. It was broken by Mr. Giuseppe bringing out a giant margherita pizza. "The house specialty," he announced proudly. To everyone's surprise, it was Breno who took the first slice. "If we're going to break protocol," he smiled, "let's do it." "Right." The rest of the evening flowed with unexpected ease. Livia shared stories about her school in London and her plans to study art. Breno, more relaxed than usual, told us some of the pranks from his own adolescence. It was only when they were enjoying the tiramisu that Livia asked the question that clearly bothered her. "Are you guys dating?" Breno almost choked on his coffee. Isabel felt her face heat up. "No," she replied truthfully, "we're co-workers." "But you like him, it wasn't a question." "Livia," Breno warned softly. "What?" "Everyone at school follows the companies. Instagram, people talk about you guys." Isabel felt her stomach sink. "What do you mean?" "Oh, you didn't know." Livia picked up her phone. "There's even a hashtag, One Duarte Power Couple. The photos of you at the last shareholders meeting went viral." The morning after dinner brought a series of surprises. Isabel arrived at the office to find her email inbox full of notifications. Apparently, the photos mentioned by Livia had really caused a stir on social media. Miss Luna, her assistant Clara, appeared in the doorway with a worried expression. "The communications department is requesting an urgent meeting, and—" "Well, I think you should see this." Clara handed over her tablet, open to a corporate gossip site. The headline made Isabel freeze. "High-rise romance. Billionaire CEO and former assistant spark speculation." "This is ridiculous," she muttered, scrolling through the article that speculated on her meteoric rise at the company. "There's more," Clara hesitated. "Some people are, well, questioning your credentials." Before Isabel could respond, her cell phone vibrated with a message from Breno. "My room. Now." The road to the presidency had never seemed so long. Every glance, every whisper from the employees weighed on his shoulders. When he entered Breno's office, he found him in a heated argument with Rami Saviani. "This is exactly the kind of exposure we don't need," Saviani argued. "Shareholders are nervous, Breno. The company is about to launch shares on the Asian Stock Exchange, and you allow your personal life to become a media circus." "My personal life is none of your business, Rami," Breno replied coldly. "That's when it affects the value of our shares," Saviani retorted, finally noticing Isabel's presence. "Ah, the star of the moment has arrived." "Mr. Saviani," she greeted him with professional coolness. "Miss Luna," he smiled, that smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I hope you're pleased with all this attention." "Actually," she replied, keeping her voice calm, "I was about to suggest a press conference." Both men looked at her in surprise. A press conference focused exclusively on the Asian expansion project, she continued. We can use this unwanted attention to highlight what really matters, the company's plans for the future. Breno watched her with a mixture of pride and admiration. Saviani, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes. Interesting how you always have an answer for everything, he commented. But you know, Miss Luna, sometimes answers aren't enough. Sometimes the secrets we keep have a way of coming out. Is that a threat, Rami? Breno took a step forward, his voice dangerously low. Imagine, Saviani laughed softly. Just a friendly observation, excuse me. When they were alone, Breno let out a heavy sigh. Sorry about that, Saviani has been complicated lately. He knows something, Isabel said thoughtfully. Something that could harm us. Us, Breno arched an eyebrow. The company, she corrected quickly, blushing. Harm the company. He stepped closer, his green eyes intense. Isabel, about last night. It was good, she interrupted him. Livia is an amazing girl, difficult but amazing. She liked you, Breno smiled. She said you're surprisingly normal for someone who works in finance. Isabel laughed but soon became serious. Breno, we need to deal with this situation. The speculation, the rumors. I know, he ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she already recognized as a sign of concern. But your idea for the press conference is good. We can... He was interrupted by a knock on the door. Clara came in, pale. Miss Luna, sorry to interrupt, but this arrived for you. She handed over a manila envelope with no return address. Isabel opened it, feeling her heart race as she saw its contents. Old photos of her family's construction company, internal documents, and a typed note. Some bankruptcies are more planned than others. Ask your boss about Project Phoenix 2019. Isabel. Noticed the immediate change in Breno's posture when he read the note about the Phoenix project. His shoulders tensed, his jaw clenched, and something dark passed through his eyes. Clara, he called without looking up from his documents, cancel my afternoon appointments. When they were alone, the silence weighed like lead. Isabel felt her heart hammering against her chest. What is Project Phoenix? His voice came out firmer than he expected. Breno walked to the window, his back to her. A mistake, one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Does it have anything to do with my construction company going bankrupt? He turned around slowly. Isabel. Answer the question, she demanded, her hands shaking slightly. In 2019, Dahan Investments engaged in a series of strategic acquisitions, he began, his voice controlled. The goal was to restructure the construction sector in some regions of the country. Restructure? Isabel felt a bitter taste in her mouth. You mean destroying smaller companies? That wasn't the goal. Breno stepped closer, but she backed away. The plan was to create a strong conglomerate, capable of competing internationally. Some smaller companies would be incorporated. Others would be bankrupted, she added, the realization hitting her like a punch. Like ours? I didn't know. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Saviani was leading the project. By the time I discovered the methods he was using, it was too late. Isabel felt the world spin. All the sleepless nights, all her father's tears, all the family's despair, all part of a strategic project. That's why he's threatening me, she muttered. He knows if I found out... Isabel, Breno tried to get closer again. Let me explain. Explain what? She exploded. How did you destroy my family's life? How did you sit across from me in a job interview knowing what your company had done? I didn't know it was your company, he raised his voice. I only found out after what? After he became emotionally involved. After he realized his victim had a face and a name. The words hung in the air like blades. Breno seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. What else did you hide from me? She asked, her voice shaking. Nothing, he replied, running, a hand over his tired face. But there's something you need to know about Saviani. He's not just trying to get at you, he wants to sell the company. Isabel blinked, confused. What? A Chinese group is interested in buying Dahan Investments. Saviani has been lobbying the board for months. His promotion, the Asian expansion project, All this threatens his plans. And why didn't you tell me this before? Because I wanted to protect you, he took a step forward. Because every time I see you, every moment I spend with you, I feel more... No, she held up her hand, stopping him. Don't do that. Don't try to turn this into a love story to smooth over what happened. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, Breno argued. I'm trying to right my wrongs. That's why I created your position, why I trusted you with the expansion project. I want to use the power I have to do something right this time. Isabel closed her eyes for a moment, trying to organize her thoughts. When she opened them again, her decision was made. I'm going to continue with the project, she declared, surprising him. Not because of you, but because hundreds of jobs depend on it. But Breno, she looked at him directly. Our limits are now more than clear. They are insurmountable. She headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. Last thing, I will investigate every detail of Project Phoenix, every document, every decision, and if I find out you lied about anything else, I know, he replied softly. You're going to leave. In the hallway, Isabel maintained her firm posture until she reached the bathroom. Only then, locked in a stall, did she allow the tears to fall. Her cell phone vibrated, a message from Livia. I need to tell you something important about Saviani. Can we meet? The cafe chosen by Livia was far from the financial center, a discreet place where no one would recognize the daughter of the powerful Breno Dahan. The teenager was already waiting for her at a table in the back, nervously stirring her chai latte. Thank you for coming, Livia said as Isabel sat down. I know you must hate me right now. Why would I hate you? Because my father destroyed his company, she replied directly. I heard you arguing. The walls in the office aren't as thick as they look. Isabel studied the young woman in front of her. There was a maturity in her green eyes that went beyond her 16 years. I don't hate you, Livia. None of this is your fault. But I can help fix it, she leaned forward, lowering her voice. Saviani used to work with my mother before the divorce. He's not who my father thinks he is. Isabel felt a shiver down her spine. What do you mean? Remember when I said I was sent to London? It wasn't just because of Dad's work. Livia took a deep breath. It was because Saviani was blackmailing my mother. He found out something about her, something that could ruin her career as a judge. Is your mother a judge? She was. Now she's a judge. Livia took a sip of her chai. The case she was judging involved one of Saviani's companies. He wanted her to change her vote. And has she changed? No. A flash of pride flashed through the teenager's eyes. That's why he turned against our family. My parents' divorce wasn't just because of Dad's work. It was Saviani who planted the seeds of discord, manipulating information, creating situations. Isabel processed the information slowly. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw the way you look at my father, Livia replied with surprising honesty, and the way he looks at you. It's different, real, and Saviani will try to destroy that, just like he tried to destroy my parents. Livia, Isabel began, but the teenager interrupted her. No, listen to me. I found something on Mom's old computer, emails, documents. Saviani doesn't just want to sell the company. He wants revenge. Project Phoenix. That was just the beginning. What do you mean? He has a bigger plan. The sale to the Chinese group is a front. In reality, he wants to fragment the company, sell it in parts, destroy Dad's legacy just as he destroyed other companies. Isabel felt her heart tighten. Does your father know about this? No, Livia bit her lip. He still trusts Saviani somehow. He thinks he knows his game, but he doesn't. Why don't you tell him? Because he wouldn't listen to me. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. Not after everything. But you he listens to. You he respects. Isabel watched the city through the cafe window, her mind working quickly. So the documents you mentioned? Here they are. Livia took a flash drive out of her bag. I copied everything before I came here. There's more. I found records of other companies that were destroyed like yours, all following the same pattern. With Slightly trembling hands, Isabel took the flash drive. "This is very dangerous, Livia. If Saviani finds out, I've lived in fear of him for too long." The teenager lifted her chin, a gesture so like her father's it hurt. "Now I want justice for my family and for yours." At that moment, looking at the determined young woman in front of her, Isabel understood something fundamental. Sometimes love manifests itself in the most unexpected ways, and sometimes it is precisely those who have hurt us the most who deserve a second chance. "There's one more thing," Livia added hesitantly. "Dad, he tried to stop Project Phoenix when he found out the truth. There are records of meetings, heated discussions. He really didn't know about your company, Isabel. And when he found out, well, you should see the emails he sent to the board." Isabel felt something warm spread in her chest, a mixture of hope and fear. Her cell phone vibrated, a message from Breno. "We need to talk. I found out something about Saviani. It's urgent." Breno's penthouse had one of the most impressive views of the capital, but Isabel barely noticed the illuminated city as the elevator ascended. Her mind was focused on the flash drive in her bag and Livia's revelations. When the doors opened, she found Breno in his private office, surrounded by documents. "Sorry to call you here," he said, looking up, "but I couldn't risk talking about this in the office." "I have something to show you too," she replied, taking the flash drive out of her bag. Breno frowned. "What is this?" "Your daughter is more perceptive than you realize." Isabel approached the table. "And apparently she inherited your talent for investigation." As she connected the flash drive to the computer, she explained everything. Livia had revealed about Saviani, the divorce, and the true plans for the company. Breno listened with increasing attention, his expression changing from surprise to contained anger. "He used my family," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "All this time." "There's more." Isabel opened an email folder. "Livia found out about your attempts to stop Project Phoenix. Why didn't you tell me?" Breno looked at her for a long time before answering. "Because I'm deeply ashamed of not having succeeded. When I found out what was happening, I tried to reverse the process, but Saviani had already convinced the majority of the board. I was a minority in my own company." "How is this possible? You are the CEO." "The ownership structure is complex," he stood, walking to the window. "After the company went public, my decision-making power was limited on certain issues. Saviani built his influence patiently, winning over shareholders one by one." Isabel watched his tense back, his posture bearing the weight of decisions and regrets. "What did you find out about him?" Breno turned, grabbing a folder from his desk. "This came today through a contact at the police. Saviani isn't just planning to break up Dahan Investments. He has connections to an international money laundering scheme." "As?" "The companies he destroyed were not chosen at random." Breno spread some documents on the table. "They were pieces of a larger puzzle. Each bankruptcy created opportunities to buy undervalued assets, which were then resold at inflated prices to shell companies abroad." Isabel felt her stomach turn. "Our construction company." "It was one of the victims," he added softly. "Isabel, I know words aren't enough, but I promise I will make this right. Every family affected will be compensated." She studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, but found only raw sincerity. "How can we stop him?" "With this," Breno pointed to the flash drive, "and with the documents I got, but we need to act fast. The shareholders' meeting is in 3 days, and Saviani will try to force a vote on the sale." "He won't give up easily," Isabel mused. "People like him always have a plan B." "I know." Breno stepped closer, his voice lowering. "That's why I need you to trust me, completely, without reservations." Isabel felt her heart race at the closeness. "How can I trust her after all?" "Because despite all my mistakes, I've never lied about how I feel about you," he replied, his green eyes intense. "And because now more than ever we need each other." The air between them was charged with electricity. Isabel could feel the heat emanating from his body, the magnetic force that always drew them to each other. But before she could respond, Her cell phone rang. It was Clara, her assistant. "Miss Luna?" His voice was shaky. "Someone broke into your office. All the files for the Asian project are gone." Bruno, who could hear the conversation, immediately grabbed his own cell phone. "I'm going to call security." "There's more," Clara continued. "They found something on your desk. An old photo of your family with a red X on it." Isabel felt her blood run cold. "Clara, get out of there now. Don't touch anything, and don't talk to anyone." When he hung up, he found Bruno already with his jacket on. "I'll go with you." "No," she stopped him. "Saviani is watching us. If we go together, we'll confirm all his suspicions. I won't let you face this alone." "I'm not alone." She picked up the flash drive and documents. "I have proof, and most importantly, I have a plan." Bruno studied her for a moment before nodding. "All right, but be careful. Saviani is dangerous when cornered." At the elevator door, she stopped. "Bruno?" "Yes?" "I trust you," she said simply, before the doors closed. What she didn't see was the smile that lit up his face, the first real smile in weeks. She didn't even imagine that at that very moment, Livia was sending the compromising documents to several investigative journalists, ensuring that the truth about Saviani could not be buried. Isabel's office was in controlled chaos when she arrived. Security staff cordoned off the area while police forensics gathered evidence. Clara waited for her in the hallway, pale but composed. "I was able to make safe backups of the project last week," his assistant informed him immediately. "We didn't lose everything." Isabel smiled, grateful for the young woman's competence. "Great work, Clara. Now I need you to do something even more important." As she gave specific instructions to her assistant, Isabel watched the movement in the office. Something didn't add up. The break-in seemed too theatrical, as if they wanted her to find exactly what she found. His cell phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Vault 237, Central Bank. The truth you're looking for is there. Run." Isabel frowned, but before she could think too much about it, Marina appeared in the hallway. "The board has called a special meeting," the analyst announced, her tone worried. "For tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" Isabel felt her stomach sink. "But the assembly was in 3 days." "Saviani managed to bring it forward. He claimed urgency due to extraordinary circumstances." Isabel checked her watch. It was almost 7 p.m. The central bank would close in an hour. Her mind worked quickly, connecting the dots. "Clara," she called to her assistant, "execute the plan we discussed. Marina, I need you to take over the project presentation tomorrow." "But," Marina began to protest. "Trust me," Isabel interrupted. "You know the numbers as well as I do. And more importantly, Saviani doesn't suspect you." While driving to the central bank, Isabel called Bruno. "Saviani brought the meeting forward," she informed him as soon as he answered. "I know." His voice was strained. "I'm trying to reverse it, but—" "No," she interrupted him. "Let it happen. I have a lead on something at the central bank, Vault 237. Like you, I received an anonymous message. Bruno, what if there is more evidence? Documents that Saviani kept as collateral." There was a moment of silence. "Be careful. It could be a trap. Or it might be our only chance." The central bank was about to close when she arrived. Using her contacts and an emergency power of attorney that Bruno sent, she gained access to the vault area. 37 was at the end of a quiet hallway. His hands trembled slightly as he inserted the key. Inside, he found an old folder with the Dahan Investments logo on it. His heart sank when he saw the first page. It was the original contract for the Phoenix project with handwritten notes in the margins. But there was more, much more. Bank statements, international transfers, a complex web of shell companies, and something that made his blood run cold. Photos. Dozens of them, showing Saviani with well-known businessmen, all now embroiled in corruption scandals. His cell phone vibrated again, another message from the unknown number. "Now you know. Use it wisely." When he left the bank, night had already fallen over the city. In the car, he called Livia. It worked, the teenager answered on the first ring. The journalists are going crazy over the documents. It should be in the papers tomorrow morning. Great job, Isabel smiled. Does your father know you were the one who sent the message about the safe? No, Livia laughed, but he'll find out, eventually. Suddenly, high beams appeared in his rearview mirror. A black car was approaching at high speed. Livia, I have to go, she said quickly. Call your father, tell him I'm heading back to the office. The car behind her accelerated, coming dangerously close. Isabel remained calm, maneuvering between the lanes, trying to keep her distance. Her cell phone rang. It was Breno. Isabel, where are you? His voice was urgent. Saviani found out about the journalists. The call dropped as the car behind her lightly bumped into her rear. Isabel gripped the steering wheel tightly, her heart pounding. The streets were nearly deserted in that part of the city. It was then that she saw the lights of the Dahan Investments building up ahead. With a risky maneuver, she entered the underground parking lot. The black car drove straight past, but she knew she wasn't safe. In the elevator, clutching the briefcase to her chest, Isabel tried to control her breathing. The evidence she carried could destroy not only Saviani, but an entire network of corruption. Now she understood why he was willing to do anything to stop her. The doors opened on the presidential floor. Breno was waiting for her in the hallway, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. Thank God, he murmured, pulling her into his arms. This time she couldn't resist the hug. She buried her face in his chest, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. We need to act fast, she said, pulling away slightly. The meeting is tomorrow and... She was interrupted by the sound of slow clapping. Rami Saviani emerged. From the shadows of the hallway, a cold smile on his lips. What a touching scene, he commented. Too bad it has to end here. Breno instinctively placed Isabel behind him, his eyes fixed on Saviani, who was advancing down the corridor with disturbing calm. It's over, Rami, Breno declared, his voice firm. We have all the evidence. Evidence? Saviani laughed, the sound humorless. You've always been so naive, Breno. Do you really think I would keep compromising documents in a bank vault? That was just bait. Isabel clutched the folder to her chest. Then why did you try to stop me from getting here? To create urgency. Panic, he smiled, pleased. To make you make mistakes. Like, for example, gathering all the really important documents in one place. He gestured to the folder in her hands. Breno visibly tensed. The journalists already have the information. Ah, yes, little Livia, Saviani sighed. As predictable as her father. But do you really think I didn't monitor her every move? Every email, every file she sent? His smile widened when he saw the concern in Breno's eyes. The journalists received corrupted files, and now, thanks to Miss Luna, I have access to all the original evidence. You're not touching her, Breno stepped forward. I don't need to, Saviani replied softly. She will hand over the file to me voluntarily, or else certain information about Judge Dahan might leak to the press tomorrow. Isabel felt Breno freeze beside her. Livia's mother. There's an interesting secret, Saviani added, something that would ruin not only your career but your life and your daughter's. You have no proof, Breno argued, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. No? Saviani took his cell phone out of his pocket, showing a video. Helena has always been careless with her personal life. Breno paled as he saw the contents of the screen. Isabel could feel the tension emanating from him in waves. The choice is yours, Miss Luna. Saviani held out his hand. The folder for this video. Simple as that. Isabel looked at Breno, seeing the conflict in his eyes. She thought of Livia, the brave teenager who risked everything to help them. Then something clicked in her mind. No, she declared firmly. Saviani arched an eyebrow. No. You made a mistake, Isabel stepped forward. Several, actually. First, you underestimated Livia. She didn't email the files. A shadow of doubt passed across Saviani's face. Second, she continued, gaining confidence, that car that followed me, too predictable. I knew you would try something like that. That's why Clara was already prepared. As if on cue, the hallway lights flickered. Saviani looked around, confused. And third, Isabel smiled, do you really think I would carry the original documents with me? At that moment, the computer screens around her lit up simultaneously. On each of them, documents, photos, bank records, all. The files Isabel had found in the safe began to appear. Clara is great with technology, Isabel explained. While you were following me, she was hacking into the company's internal systems. Every computer, every server, every tablet connected to Dahan Investments network is receiving this information right now. Impossible, Saviani muttered, his face draining of color. And that video, she continued, Judge Helena Dahan personally authorized its release 10 minutes ago. She preferred to face the scandal rather than continue to be blackmailed. Breno looked at her with a mixture of admiration and surprise. You planned all this? Not alone, she smiled. Your daughter really is brilliant. It was her idea to use the company's internal network. The sound of elevators arriving filled the hallway. The doors opened to reveal federal police officers and, to everyone's surprise, Helena Dahan herself. Rami Saviani, the judge announced, her voice sharp. You are under arrest for blackmail, extortion, and conspiracy. As the officers advanced, Saviani looked at Isabel with a mixture of hatred and respect. Impressive, Miss Luna. You win. No, she replied. We won. As a family. Breno intertwined his fingers with hers, squeezing gently. In the other, elevator Livia appeared, running to hug her parents. For a moment, watching the scene, Isabel felt a pang of longing for her own family. Hey, Livia called out, extending her arm. You're part of this now, too. The next morning, the newspapers reported the fall of Rami Saviani. The headlines detailed the corruption scheme, the destroyed companies, the network of blackmail. Dahan Investments was at the center of the media storm, but in an unexpectedly positive way, as the company that helped dismantle one of the largest corporate corruption schemes in the country. Isabel looked out over the city from her new office, now as Director of Social Responsibility. The change in position had been Breno's idea, a way to begin repairing the damage caused by the Phoenix project. First meeting in 10 minutes, Clara announced, walking in with a folder. Representatives of the affected families are arriving. Among them, Isabel knew, were her own parents. Breno had insisted that they be the first to be compensated, but she wanted more than financial compensation. She wanted reconstruction, a new beginning. The affordable housing project is ready for presentation, Clara continued, and Mr. Dahan asked me to remind you about tonight's dinner. Isabel smiled when she noticed her assistant's formal slip. In the last few weeks since Saviani's arrest, a lot had changed. Her relationship with Breno, previously held back by professional boundaries and past hurts, blossomed naturally. Isabel? A familiar voice called from the doorway. Her father, Jamil Luna, stood there, looking smaller and older than she remembered, but with a new sparkle in his eyes. Dad! She ran to hug him, smelling the familiar scent of aftershave mixed with coffee. You came early. Your mother is downstairs talking to Livia, he smiled. That girl is impossible to resist. She has that effect on people, Isabel agreed, remembering how Livia had practically adopted her parents since she met them. So, her father looked around the impressive office, Director of Social Responsibility. It's more than a title, Dad, she guided him to the window. See that lot over there? It's going to be our first project. Low-income housing built, with sustainable technology, and guess who I want as a technical consultant? Jamil's eyes lit up. Are you offering me a job, daughter? I'm offering a partnership, she corrected. Are your construction experience combined with the resources of Dahan Investments? We can make a difference, Dad. Before he could answer, Breno appeared at the door, Livia and Isabel's mother right behind. Sorry to interrupt, he smiled, but I thought you all might like to see this. On the television in the meeting room, a news report showed the arrest of other businessmen linked to Saviani's scheme. The reporter highlighted how the case had inspired other companies to review their corporate practices, and, to think it started with a job interview, Livia commented, nudging Isabel. Actually, Breno walked over, taking his hand. It started with one person brave enough to stand up to an impossible CEO, and stubborn enough not to give up, Helena Dahan added, entering the room. Breno's ex-wife was now a frequent presence at the company, helping to restructure the legal department. Isabel looked around at the group of people around her, her blood family and the family that fate had brought her. At first, she had just wanted a job to survive. Now she had a much greater purpose. The family meeting starts in 5 minutes, Clara gently reminded. Let's go together, Breno decided, surprising everyone. Not as a company and customers, but as people trying to fix the past and build something better. As they walked to the meeting room, Isabel felt Livia link her arm through hers. You know, the teenager commented, for someone who just wanted a simple job, you've accomplished a lot more. Yeah, Isabel smiled, watching Breno lead. The group, her father excitedly discussing construction projects, her mother and Helena exchanging recipes. Sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, even when we think we want something else. And sometimes, Livia added with a knowing smile, an impossible CEO is exactly what we need to change our story. 6 months had passed since Saviani's downfall. Dahan Investments had completely transformed, and not just in its corporate structure. The office, once cold and impersonal, now pulsed with a different energy. In place of fear and cutthroat competition, there was cooperation and purpose. Isabel looked at the model of the social project's first housing complex, proud of the progress. Her father, now an official technical consultant, had revolutionized the original design, incorporating sustainable solutions that would reduce maintenance costs for families. The first phase is almost ready, Jamil said, adjusting some details on the model. Families can move in 2 weeks. And the registrations for the second project have already exceeded our expectations, Clara added, consulting her tablet. More than 3,000 families interested. Isabel smiled, remembering how it all began. The initial idea of compensation had evolved into something much bigger, a social transformation program that combined housing, education, and job opportunities. Miss Luna, Clara called out to her again. The van with the project teens has arrived. They're waiting for the guided tour. The project that was closest to her heart, a mentoring program for high school students, inspired by her own story. Every week, groups of students would visit the company to learn about different careers and possibilities. When he arrived in the lobby, he found Livia already chatting animatedly with the teenagers. Breno's daughter had become a sort of informal ambassador for the program, using her own experience to connect with the young people. And then Isabel literally hacked the company's system, Livia was saying, making the teenagers laugh. I mean, technically it was Clara, but still... Livia, Isabel interrupted her, amused. I think we can skip that part of the story. But that's the best part, one of the teenagers protested. Everyone already knows the story of the director, who started out as an assistant, but no one tells the cool details. The legal details, a familiar voice commented from the doorway, include a lot of dedication and hard work. Breno approached the group, surprisingly casual for a Friday, tie-less and with his sleeves rolled up. The teenagers immediately straightened, up impressed by the CEO's presence. But Mr. Dahan forgot to mention the part where he also had to learn how to eat pizza, Livia teased, making everyone laugh again. The tour continued through the different departments, with the young people absorbing every detail. Isabel noticed how some looked in wonder as Clara explained technology systems. Others were interested in engineering with Jamil, and some were fascinated by the legal issues presented by Helena. They remind me of you, Breno commented quietly, approaching as the teenagers participated in an activity. That sparkle in their eyes, the desire to learn. I just hope they don't have to go through what I went through, she replied, watching a girl furiously take notes. You won't get through, he assured her, taking her hand discreetly. That's why we're here. The touch between them, once restrained and hesitant, was now as natural as breathing. In recent months, their relationship had blossomed along with the company's projects. It was no longer a secret, although employees still Loved to speculate about the CEO's romance with the director who had revolutionized the company. "Dad," Livia suddenly called, "tell them about the international project." The teenager's eyes turned to Breno, curious. He smiled, exchanging an knowing look with Isabel. "Actually," he began, "this is an interesting story. It started with a young executive assistant who had the courage to question wrong numbers in a presentation." As Breno told the story of the Asian project, now expanded to include partnerships with socially responsible companies, Isabel watched the attentive faces of the young people. In each of them, she saw a different potential, a story waiting to be written. "And you know what I learned?" Breno concluded, his gaze meeting hers. "That sometimes we need to lose control to find the right direction. That the best partnerships, professional or personal, begin when we have the courage to be vulnerable. And love and business can mix," Livia added with a mischievous smile, "as long as you have a good assistant to hack the system when necessary." "Livia!" Isabel and Breno exclaimed in unison, making everyone laugh. Later, when the teenagers had left and the office was starting to empty out for the weekend, Isabel found a post-it on her desk. "Dinner tonight? I have a surprise for you. B." She smiled, tucking the note into the drawer along with others, a growing collection of small moments that marked her journey over the past few months. From assistant to director, from distrust to love, from survival to purpose. The restaurant Breno had chosen was different from the fancy places they usually frequented. It was a small, cozy trattoria with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Isabel recognized it immediately. It was where they had celebrated the approval of their first housing project. "Nostalgia?" she asked as she sat down. "Something like that," he smiled mysteriously. "Actually, I chose this place because it was here that I realized something important." "And what happened?" "That you smile differently when you're really happy." He took her hand across the table. "Like that night when they approved the project, your eyes shine in a special way." Isabel felt her heart race. After months together, Breno still had the power to surprise her with observations like that. "I have a lot to smile about lately," she replied softly, "and I hope to give you one more today." He gestured, and the waiter brought a folder. Intrigued, Isabel opened the document. It was an international partnership agreement, but not with Asian companies. It was with a family-owned construction company in the interior of the capital. "This is," she began, recognizing the logo. "Your old construction company," Breno added. "I talked to your father. The company still exists legally, it's just been dormant. With the right investment and the experience you have now, do you want to reactivate?" "The construction company?" Isabel asked, excited. "I want to do more than that," he continued. "I want her to be our main partner in social projects. Her family built that company on solid values, Isabel. That's exactly what we need to make these projects successful." Tears formed in her eyes. "Breno—" "Wait, there's more." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "This is personal." Inside the box there was a key. "I bought the house next door. To mine," he explained. "Or rather, I bought the 2 houses next door. One for your parents if they're willing to move closer, and another for us," she finished, her heart pounding. "If you want," Breno smiled. "Livia is already mentally decorating the rooms. In fact," he hesitated briefly, "she mentioned something about wanting siblings." Isabel laughed, wiping away a tear. "She doesn't waste time. Actually," Breno became serious, "there are 2 children in the social project, siblings, Pascal 14 and Miriam 12. They're in the foster care system," Isabel added. She knew the children well. They were active participants in the mentoring program. "Livia has spent a lot of time with them in the last few weeks," he continued. "And, well, let's just say she's not the only one who's fallen in love with them." Isabel felt her heart expand. "You're suggesting—" "I'm suggesting everything, Isabel." Breno held her hands tightly. "The house, the family, the future. I'm suggesting that we turn all these small victories into something permanent, something ours, including 2 wonderful children who need a home." She smiled through her tears. "Especially them," he smiled back. "What do you say?" At that moment, Looking at the man in front of her, Isabel saw the entire journey they had traveled, from initial mistrust to deep love, from old hurts to healing together. She saw Livia, who had transformed from a rebellious teenager into a strong and compassionate young woman. She saw her parents reborn professionally. She saw Pascal and Miriam, two brilliant children who deserved a chance. Yes, she replied simply, to everything. Breno's smile lit up his entire face. He stood up, pulling her in for a kiss that made the other customers in the restaurant applaud. "I thought you'd never get to this part," a familiar voice rang out. Livia came out from behind a partition, followed by Helena, Jamil, Isabel's mother, and to everyone's surprise, Pascal and Miriam. "Did you guys plan this?" Isabel asked, laughing and crying at the same time. "Actually," Livia smiled, hugging her younger siblings, "we planned a family." The adaptation process was a roller coaster of emotions. The move to the new house coincided with the period of getting closer to Pascal and Miriam, transforming each day into a different adventure. The walls, previously white and impersonal, quickly became covered with drawings, photos, and small marks. "Of a family in the making. I can't believe you've never played video games," Livia exclaimed one Saturday afternoon, watching Breno try unsuccessfully to manipulate the control of the console that the children had brought. "I was more of a chess guy," he defended himself, as Pascal patiently showed him for the third time how to make the character jump. "Chess is cool," Miriam commented from her corner, where she was reading an advanced mathematics book. "But it needs to be modernized, Dad." The word father was still new, tested cautiously by the brothers, as was mother, which sometimes slipped out naturally when they addressed Isabel, and other times was replaced by a timid aunt. "Who wants pizza?" Isabel asked, entering the room with the delivery flyers. "Since when do you order pizza?" Helena teased, arriving for the family dinner that had become a Saturday tradition. "I thought you made it yourself, after those classes with Mr. Giuseppe." "Classes." "Continue," Isabel laughed, "but today is a lazy day." Mr. Giuseppe, the owner of the pizzeria where it all began, had become a kind of step-grandfather to the children. His establishment was a frequent meeting point for the family, and he made a point of teaching Isabel his culinary secrets. "We have news," Jamil announced when everyone was gathered in the room. "The construction company, the new Luna, under Hun Construções, has just entered into a partnership with 3 professional training NGOs. We're going to offer technical courses," Isabel's mother added excitedly. "Train people from the communities where we're building. Create real job opportunities." Breno smiled proudly. The merger of the companies had been more than a business deal. It was the materialization of a shared vision of the future. "Can Pascal participate?" Miriam asked suddenly. "He's super good at technical drawing." Everyone looked at the teenager in surprise, who blushed deeply. "You never told me you liked technical drawing," Isabel commented softly. "It's just," he hesitated. "In the last family, they said it was a waste of time, that I should focus on something more normal." The silence that followed was heavy. Breno stood up, going to his work folder. "Would you like to see the original designs for our first project?" he offered Pascal. "I drew everything by hand before AutoCAD existed." The boy's eyes lit up. Soon the two of them were hunched over the blueprints, with Pascal asking surprisingly technical questions that left Breno impressed. "He has natural talent," Jamil commented quietly to Isabel, "just like you had at his age." Miriam, watching the scene, timidly approached Helena. Do you think I could be a judge one day like you?" Helena smiled, excited. "Of course you can. In fact, how about we start with some basic law lessons? I'm sure Livia will like it too." "Hey, don't include me in your legal plans," Livia protested, laughing. "I've already decided that I'm going to do social responsibility, just like Isabel." "Since when?" Breno asked, looking up from his projects. "Since I saw how she transformed that room full of numbers into something that really helps people," Livia replied simply. Isabel felt her eyes well up. She looked around the room, now full of life and purpose. Breno and Pascal discussing architecture, Miriam and Helena planning their studies, Livia dreaming about her future, her parents sharing their experiences. It was more than she had dreamed. Of when she first walked into that building, desperate for a job. "Hey," Bruno called out softly, noticing her moment of reflection. "Everything okay?" "More than fine," she smiled, wiping away a discreet tear. "Just thinking about how life takes turns." "Speaking of twists and turns," he smiled mysteriously, "I have one last surprise for today." The doorbell rang, and Clara entered carrying a briefcase. "Sorry to interrupt your Saturday," she smiled, "but I thought you might want to see this right away." Inside the folder was an official notification. Dahan. Investments had been chosen to lead an international social housing project in partnership with the UN. "That's," Isabel began, but was interrupted by Miriam. "Does this mean we'll help more families?" the girl asked, her eyes shining. "It means," Bruno confirmed, "that we're going to help families all over the world." And he looked at Pascal. "We're going to need a lot of technical drawings." The boy's smile lit up the whole room. The news of the international project with the UN required a restructuring of the company. Isabel now divided her time between the Social Responsibility Department and the coordination of the new project, while Bruno focused on expanding the network of global partnerships. "Mumbai has confirmed participation," Clara said during her morning briefing, "and the Cape Town office is interested in replicating the model." "Great," Isabel made some notes. "How is the process of adapting the project to different cultures going?" "Miriam has some interesting ideas about this," Clara smiled. "She's been spending her afternoons in the library, studying vernacular architecture from different countries." Isabel looked up in surprise. "Miriam? Our Miriam?" "Apparently, she combined advanced mathematics with cultural research," Clara explained. "She created an algorithm to calculate the best adaptation of designs considering local climate, culture, and materials." Pride warmed Isabel's chest. In the past few months, Miriam had blossomed from a shy girl into a young researcher eager for knowledge. "We have another meeting in 10 minutes, Clara continued, "with the people from the Vocational Training NGO. Pascal is going to present the new technical drawing mentoring program." "Is he going to perform?" Isabel asked, surprised again. "It was his idea," Bruno replied, entering the room. "He said he wants to inspire other young people in the system to discover their talents." Isabel's heart filled with emotion. Pascal, who had barely spoken when he first arrived, now had enough confidence to lead presentations. The meeting was a success. Pascal, with his unique mix of shyness and passion for the subject, captivated everyone with his proposal to use technology and art to teach technical drawing to young people in vulnerable situations. "Where did you learn to do presentations like that?" one of the NGO directors asked, impressed. "With my sister Livia," Pascal replied proudly. "She said that if I want to change the world, I need to learn how to communicate my ideas." After the meeting, Isabel found Bruno in his office, organizing some documents. "We need to talk," he said, his tone serious but with a twinkle in his eyes. "Did something happen?" "Yes," he smiled. "Helena called. The adoption has been officially approved." Isabel felt her legs weaken. After months of legal proceedings, social visits, and anticipation, it was official. Pascal and Miriam were legally her children. "There's more," Bruno continued. "Livia has decided to live with us permanently. She talked to her mother yesterday." Is she sure?" Isabel asked, excited. "In her words, 'You can't lead a family revolution from another continent,'" he laughed. "Besides, she wants to be close to her siblings." Isabel allowed herself to sit, overwhelmed with emotion. Her family, which had begun so improbably, was now official in every way. "How are we going to tell them?" she asked. "How about a special dinner at the place where it all began?" That night, Mr. Giuseppe's pizzeria was decorated for a celebration. The whole family was gathered. Helena, Jamil, Isabel's mother, even Clara had been invited. "Before anything else," Bruno began, standing up, "we have an important announcement." Pascal and Miriam looked at each other, tense. Livia, who already knew the news, could barely contain her smile. "As of today," Breno continued, his voice breaking. Officially, legally, and most importantly, in our hearts. We are a family. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of Miriam starting to cry. Pascal, usually restrained, jumped from his chair to hug Isabel and Breno. So can we call you Mom and Dad? Always? Miriam asked between sobs. Always, Isabel confirmed, hugging her daughter. And me? Livia asked, feigning jealousy. Do I get the official title of older sister? With all the responsibilities that the position demands, Breno joked. Family, Pascal murmured, testing the word. Our family. Mr. Giuseppe, excited, brought a special pizza, decorated with everyone's names. To celebrate the Dahan Luna, he announced proudly. The family that started with a pizza. Later, at home, while the children were sleeping, Isabel found Breno on the balcony, contemplating the city. What are you thinking about? She asked, hugging him from behind. How unpredictable life is, he replied, turning to her. I had it all planned out, the company, the success, the power, and then you came, along challenging every certainty, showing there was so much more. What now? She smiled. Now? He glanced inside, where family photos lined the walls. Now we have a new plan, a better one. One that involves building not just buildings, but futures for our family and for any others we can help. The country's most watched television program had invited Isabel to be interviewed about the International Social Housing Project. Normally, she avoided media exposure, preferring to let her work speak for itself. But this time was different. The children had insisted. You have to tell our story, Mom, Miriam argued over breakfast. There are so many other children waiting for a chance. And so many companies could do more, Pascal added, looking up from his sketchbook. How will they know it's possible if no one shows them? So there she was, backstage at the studio, nervously adjusting her blazer while the makeup artist put the finishing touches on it. Breno, who was originally supposed to be interviewed, had insisted that this moment be hers alone. You are the heart of this story, he said, before leaving for an important meeting, and no one can tell it better. 30 seconds, someone announced. Isabel took a deep breath, remembering the path that had brought her here. From a young woman desperate for a job to the director of an international project. From loneliness to the family she never imagined having. Here you are, the presenter announced, the woman who is revolutionizing the concept of corporate social responsibility, Isabel Luna Dahan. The cameras focused on her as she walked across the stage. In the front row of the audience, a surprise. Livia, Pascal, and Miriam smiled encouragingly. Beside them, Clara held a discreet sign, Kill it, boss. Isabel, the presenter, began after the initial formalities. Your story is fascinating. From executive assistant to director of an international project in partnership with the UN. How did it all begin? With a job interview, she smiled, remembering that day. And with the courage to question what seemed unquestionable. The conversation flowed naturally as Isabel shared Dahan Investments' journey from Project Phoenix to transforming into a company focused on social impact. But the most interesting thing, the presenter commented, is how this professional transformation was reflected in an equally inspiring personal story. At that moment, images of the family appeared on the screen. Breno teaching Pascal how to read architectural plans, Miriam explaining her algorithm at a youth conference, Livia leading a mentoring project. Your family is a living example of what you stand for professionally, the presenter observed. What was that construction process like? It was organic, Isabel replied, moved to tears as she saw the photos. It started with the realization that social transformation is not about numbers or projects. It's about people, about giving opportunities, about believing that everyone deserves an opportunity to rebuild their stories. And speaking of reconstruction, the presenter smiled, we have a surprise for you. The screen switched to a live broadcast. Breno was in a video conference with UN representatives in New York. Beside him, Jamil, Isabel's father, was presenting the International Expansion Project of Luna and Dahan Construções. We just signed, Breno announced, smiling for the camera. The social housing program will be implemented in 15 countries over the next 2 years. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Isabel felt tears in her eyes as she saw her father, once bankrupt, now shining in an international performance. But there's more, the presenter continued. Your children have prepared something special. Pascal, Miriam and Livia went up on stage. Miriam carried a laptop, Pascal his drawings, and Livia a microphone. We want to introduce Project Phoenix 2.0, Livia announced, a digital platform that connects young people in the foster care system with professional mentoring programs. Using technology and art as tools of transformation, Pascal explained, showing his technical drawings adapted for an app, and compatibility algorithms for perfect matching between mentors and mentees, Miriam added, demonstrating the system she had developed. Isabel watched her children, marveling at their confidence and purpose. They were no longer the insecure children of months ago. They were young people determined to make a difference. It's amazing how technology and humanity can work together, the presenter commented, visibly moved. That's what I always say. Isabel smiled, hugging her children. Sometimes we need to lose everything to find something greater. Sometimes a simple job can be the start of a revolution. The audience rose to their feet in applause. On the screen, Breno and Jamil smiled. Proudly, Clara in the front row discreetly wiped away tears. And what is the next revolution? The presenter asked. Isabel looked at her children, each shining with their own unique talents, then at the screen where Breno and his father represented the union of two stories into one. The next revolution, she replied, is to continue believing that each person has the power to rewrite their story. And that together, as a family, as a company, as a society, we can create the most beautiful chapters. The impact of the interview was immediate and overwhelming. The next morning, Dahan Investments was inundated with calls, emails, and messages on social media. Companies wanted to replicate the social responsibility model, families wanted to participate in the housing projects, and young people in the foster care system were begging to participate in Project Phoenix 2.0. I think we broke the internet, Livia joked over breakfast, scrolling through her phone. The video of the interview already has 5 million views. And over 300 applications for the mentoring program, Pascal added, checking the system they had created. Miriam, focused on her laptop, looked up with a smile. The algorithm is overloaded with so much matching to do. Breno, who had just returned from New York, watched the scene with satisfaction. You have created something extraordinary, he said, pouring himself some coffee. But are you prepared for the responsibility? Actually, Isabel interjected, entering the kitchen, we have a surprise about that. She made a sign and Clara entered, carrying a briefcase. Junior directors, Clara announced formally but with a smile, welcome to Dahan Investments officially. What do you mean? The three teenagers asked in unison. The board has approved the creation of a youth division of the company, Breno explained. You will have autonomy to develop Project Phoenix 2.0 with all the necessary support. But, Isabel added, with some conditions. First, studies continue to be a priority, Breno established. Second, each one will have a specific mentor, Isabel continued. Livia will work with me in the social area, Pascal with his grandfather in architecture, and Miriam with the technology team. And third, Clara added, you need to maintain your grade point averages, Grandma Helena's orders. The three looked at each other, processing the information. It was Miriam who spoke first. Does this mean I can use the company's technology lab? With supervision, Breno smiled. And can I participate in the project meetings? Pascal asked anxiously. Your grandfather has already set aside a clipboard for you, Isabel confirmed. What about me? Livia asked. Can I implement that social exchange idea we talked about? That's why we need you full-time after college, Breno replied. The international project depends on this initiative. Breakfast turned into a lively family business meeting, with ideas and plans flying from all sides. Clara methodically wrote everything down on her tablet, occasionally reminding herself that kids need to go to school. We're not children anymore, Livia protested, but her smile betrayed the pride of being taken seriously. Later, when the house was silent with everyone going about their business, Isabel found Breno in her home office, reviewing some documents. "They've grown so much," she commented, sitting down beside him. "We've all grown," he replied, taking her hand. "You've transformed not just the company, but all of us." "We've changed together," she corrected, "and we still have a long way to go." As if to confirm his words, his cell phone vibrated with a message from Helena. "Family meeting on Sunday. I have news about the expansion of the legal program for young people." "More projects?" Breno asked, seeing the message. "More dreams coming true," Isabel smiled. "More stories being rewritten." That night, as the family gathered for dinner, now a sacred tradition, Isabel observed each face around the table. Breno, no longer. The distant CEO, but a loving, present father. Livia, transformed from a rebellious teenager into a young leader. Pascal, finding his voice through art and architecture. Miriam, uniting technology and humanity in surprising ways. "You know what's funny?" she commented, making everyone look in her direction. "At first, I just wanted a job to survive. And it ended up winning a revolution," Livia added. "No," Isabel corrected, her heart overflowing with love. "I ended up getting everything I didn't even know I needed." Breno squeezed her hand under the table as her children began to excitedly discuss the next steps of the project. The sound of their voices, mixed with laughter and shared dreams, was the most beautiful music she had ever heard. It was the sound of a story that continued to be written, no longer with fear or despair, but with love, purpose, and the certainty that the best chapters were yet to come. A year had passed since the television interview. The Phoenix 2.0 project was now an international reference in social inclusion programs, and Dahan Investments was preparing for a historic moment, the inauguration of the first housing complex completely designed by the new generation. "Are you sure you don't want to go over the project one more time?" Pascal asked nervously, adjusting his tie for the 10th time that morning. "Son," Jamil smiled, placing his hand on his grandson's shoulder, "you've checked every detail at least 50 times. It's perfect." The complex was truly impressive, combining the traditional experience of Luna and Dahan construções with the technological innovations developed by Miriam. Each unit was not just a residence, but a home designed to transform lives. "The energy sensors are all working," Miriam said, checking her tablet. "The automation system will help families save up to 40% on basic bills." Livia, who was coordinating the inauguration event, gave final instructions to her team. Under her leadership, what was supposed to be a simple ceremony had turned into a community celebration. "Families start arriving in an hour," she informed, approaching the group. "And guess what? Mr. Giuseppe is bringing pizza for everyone." "Some things never change," Breno commented, arriving with Isabel. He paused for a moment, surveying the complex that rose imposingly against the capital's skyline. On the walls, a colorful mural told the story of the community, an idea of Pascal's who had transformed the project into an open-air art gallery. "We did it, didn't we?" Isabel whispered, lacing her fingers with his. "You did it," he corrected. "It all started with you." "Actually," a familiar voice interrupted, "it started with a broken family that needed to reconnect." Helena approached, accompanied by a group of young people, the first graduates of the legal program she had developed. "And now," she continued, "we are all here building not just buildings but futures." The sound of a bus arriving caught everyone's attention. The first families who would live in the complex were beginning to disembark. Among them were many who had lost everything, just like Isabel's family years ago. "Welcome to your new home," Livia announced into the microphone, starting the ceremony. An elderly lady, one of the first to get off the bus, approached Isabel with tears in her eyes. "You're that girl on TV, aren't you? Who also lost everything once?" Isabel nodded, excited. "My granddaughter won't stop talking about your story," the lady continued. "She wants to be an architect now, just like Mr. Pascal." As if he had heard his name, Pascal approached timidly. "I can show you the design drawings," he offered to the girl accompanying the lady. "And maybe you'd like to join our mentoring program." The girl's smile lit up her entire face. In another corner, Miriam explained to a group of teenagers how the automation system worked, her eyes shining as she saw their genuine interest. In the technology. You can learn this too, she assured. You just have to want to. Breno watched everything with a full heart. His financial empire had transformed into something much greater, a legacy of social transformation that would continue through his children. Clara, ever efficient, coordinated the distribution of tablets to each family, Miriam's innovation, to help them manage their new smart homes. Each apartment has a QR code, she explained. When you scan it, you'll find personalized tutorials and money-saving tips. Mr. Giuseppe arrived with his pizzas, turning the formal opening into a true community celebration. Soon the common area of the complex was filled with laughter, music, and the irresistible smell of freshly baked pasta. You know what's amazing? Livia commented, joining her parents with a slice of pizza. Every person here has a different story, but they all connect in some way. Like ours, Miriam added, hugging Isabel. Like ours, Pascal agreed, finally relaxing his tie. Isabel looked at her family, not just Breno and the children, but everyone there. Helena, who had transformed her pain into purpose. Jamil and his mother, who had found a new mission. Clara, who was much more than an assistant. Mr. Giuseppe, who had become an essential part of their lives. I used to think success was about having a good job and stability, she reflected. But now I know what success is. About building bridges between stories, about turning pain into possibility, about creating spaces where people can start over. Breno hugged her from behind, both of them observing the scene in front of them. Families exploring their new homes, children running through the common spaces, young people dreaming of possible futures. And to think it all started with a job. Interview, he murmured in her ear. No, she corrected, turning to face him. It started with love. The kind of love that rebuilds, that transforms, that believes. And this, she smiled, looking at her children who were now leading their own revolutions. This is the kind of love that never ends. It just multiplies. 5 years later, the Dahan Investments Auditorium was packed for the graduation ceremony of the first class of the Phoenix Institute, the project that began as a dream of 3 teenagers and was now a reality that transformed lives across the country. Livia, elegant in her business suit, took the stage to give the opening speech. At 21, she was already director of social projects, having revolutionized the way companies implemented their social responsibility policies. When we were children, she began, her voice clear and confident, we learned that family is not just about blood ties. It is about choices, about love, about belief. Today, each of you is proof of that. In the front row, Pascal, now an award-winning architect at 19, beamed with pride. His first solo project, a sustainable cultural center, had won international recognition. Beside him, Miriam, a 17-year-old technology prodigy, was putting the finishing touches to her new artificial intelligence algorithm focused on social inclusion. Breno and Isabel watched their children with hearts overflowing. What began as a story of corporate redemption had turned into a movement that inspired generations. Every person in this room, Livia continued, has a story of new beginnings. Whether you're a young person in the foster care system who found their way through our programs, a professional who decided to dedicate their time as a mentor, or a family who found a new home in our housing projects, you are part of something bigger. Helena, now retired from the judiciary and fully dedicated to the Institute's legal program, discreetly wiped away a tear. Beside her, Jamil and Isabel's mother coordinated the international expansion of Luna and Dahan Construções, taking the social construction model to other countries. But today, Livia paused meaningfully. I want to tell you a special story. The story of a young woman who came to this company 6 years ago, desperate for a job. Isabel felt Breno squeeze her hand as memories of that first day flooded her mind. My mother, Isabel Luna Dahan, didn't know it that day, but she was about to start a revolution, not just in her life or in our company, but in the lives of thousands of people. On the screen behind Livia, images began to appear, the first housing projects, the families benefiting, the young people transformed by the Phoenix 2.0 project, the renewed communities. Today, Instituto Phoenix is not just a vocational training school. It is a place where dreams take flight, where stories are rewritten, where families are strengthened. And all this because one person had the courage to challenge the status quo, to believe that companies can be more than profit, that families can be more than conventions. Pascal and Miriam took the stage, joining their sister. Clara, now CEO of the company's technology division, beamed proudly from her position in the audience. On behalf of the Dahan Luna family, the three spoke in unison, we welcome the new generation of social changemakers. One by one, the graduates took the stage, young architects, engineers, programmers, social workers, all united by the same purpose of change. Mr. Giuseppe, now the owner of a chain of school restaurants that employs vulnerable young people, served his famous pizza at a special cocktail party after the ceremony. "You know what's most amazing?" Breno commented, watching the celebration. "Every person here has a little bit of you." "From us," Isabel corrected. "Every person here has a little bit of our story." In that moment, watching her children lead a new generation of social changemakers, Isabel fully understood the meaning of success. It wasn't about power, money, or status. It was about the impact we leave, the lives we touch, the stories we help rewrite. "Hey, Mom!" Miriam called excitedly. "Come and see. The algorithm has identified 3,000 more families who could benefit from the next project." "And I already have the perfect design for them," Pascal added, his eyes shining. "With an integrated professional training program," Livia added. Isabel looked at Breno, who was smiling that smile that still made her heart race after all these years. "Ready for another revolution?" he asked. "Always," she replied, kissing him softly, "because now I know that the best stories are the ones that never really end. They just inspire new chapters." And so, in the heart of the capital, a story that began with a simple search for a job continued to multiply, proving that love, when combined with purpose, has the power to transform not just one life, but entire generations.